Hello, my name is Nicole Gregory and I'm the Museum Director here at the Morton Museum of Collierville History. Today is October 20th, 2025, and this is our third recording today in our In Their Words Collierville Oral History Project. Today I have with me Peggy Turnipseed, and I'm just going to let Peggy introduce yourself a little bit to us.
Well, my husband Sidney and I moved to Collierville in the early 70s from Memphis, and my husband had grown up in a small town in Mississippi, and this was the kind of community he was looking for to raise his children. So we'd been very fortunate to live here, and our family has loved it.
And like anything specific that really drew you here? Was it the square? Was it safety? I mean,
Absolutely. It was a compromise on our behalf because my husband wanted to move back to the little town in Mississippi, Potts Camp, where he grew up. And I panicked because I didn't want to move to Potts Camp. So Collierville was a compromise. And he loved it because it had the same kind of community feel that his little town did. So it worked for us.
Absolutely. So one of the things you first saw when you moved here is that small town feel. Was there anything else when you got here that you feel like was here that is no longer here, or has things changed much for you since you got here?
Oh my, in the early 70s when we came, a lovely real estate person, Pete Kozlowski, drove us all around town to show us available housing. There were 3 houses available in the whole town. There were not subdivisions as such as they are now. So 3, and none of the 3 worked for our family. Mm-hmm. So we saw a little sign, a little for sale sign on Peterson Lake Road on a vacant lot. We had no intention of building a house, had never built a house, had no idea how to do that. But there was the little sign, and so we called and made an offer, and they took it. And then we panicked because
serious.
We panicked because we didn't even walk over the lot. We just drove by and saw the sign. So it took us a little while to actually get a plan and begin to build and be here. But that was the first surprise, was that there was no available housing. But we loved the square. From the very beginning, we loved the square. We loved our neighbors. God was so gracious to sit us between Miss Catherine Hinton and Mr. Herbert and Francis Hinton. They were long-time Collierville people, knew everybody. They saw to it we were plugged in everywhere. They invited us to everything. It had such a lovely small-town feel. And I was born in Memphis. I had never experienced that, this feeling of community. Mm-hmm. And it was everywhere here then. There was one school, one elementary, one middle, one high school. The homecoming parade came right down our street. It just couldn't have been lovelier. And every time you went to the square for an event, it felt like the whole community was there. Mm-hmm. There were church services, there was a Christmas Eve candlelight service at the Methodist Church. It felt like a Norman Rockwell painting to me. And it just had this wonderful spirit of community then and now.
Absolutely. And so how many kids did you bring with you on this endeavor?
Well, we brought 2 and then raised another one.
Okay, excellent.
So 3 grew up here.
And how do you think they adjusted to the school system, growing up in small town like Collierville? Do you think that they got every opportunity here, or do you feel like you wish they had more opportunities? Because this is a small town, there's only so much you can do with it.
It is a small town, and when we came here, there were not parks. The park system had not begun then, so there were not places to go and things to do. But I felt like the benefits far outweighed that because you could do things then. Our children had ponies, and they could ride down Peterson Lake, across Poplar, and come. I can hardly get out in my car now, but they would ride into what is now Browbrook Cove and tie up their horses behind the Smith house. Mary Jean and Bobby Smith had 10 children. So they were like the community center of Collierville. They had a pool in their yard and a huge yard. Everybody's child was a friend of one of their children. Yeah. So you'd ride up there and they'd jump in the pool and swim, and then everybody'd ride up to the square on horseback and tie up behind the coal yard. And first you'd go to the drugstore because you could have a charge account there in your daddy's name. So you'd get a Coke at the drugstore. And then you had to have money in your pocket because the golden rule, which was the 5 and dime on the square then, you could get a candy bar. And then you could go around to Herman Wright's service station and hang around him there, and that was as far as you could go. Mm-hmm. They didn't like you to go, everybody got warned, don't go any further than the service station because the pool hall was down there.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what was going to happen at the pool hall, and I'm sure they went.
Yes, but you didn't want to attempt it.
But they were told not to. But it seemed to me, having grown up in a big town, that the connections you made were so much more valuable than anything they could have missed. Mm. You know, and we were close enough to Memphis that you had advantages, the zoo and the museums and things like that, but you didn't but you didn't miss out on the connectedness that you had here. People knew each other. I remember our friends, the Fosters, they lived on Walnut, I think. And one day coming home from work, Herman Wright saw one of the boys walking somewhere that he shouldn't have been. He looked like he was lost. So he called him and he said, I don't know which one he is, but I know he's a Foster. And somebody needs to go after him. And so he had evidently gotten out of the yard and nobody missed him. But Herman Wright saw him on the way home to lunch. And that would never happen in a big town.
No.
Well, you wouldn't know anybody and you wouldn't dare say anything if you did. And
Yeah.
so there were things like that happened that don't happen in big cities.
Absolutely. So, and you know, speaking of small town America, I mean, I grew up in a small town and we had our little activities and our traditions. Is there anything like a tradition you think is very Collierville, like really comes across as like that's very us that you witness?
Yes. Oh, yeah, everything was. There was a Christmas parade on the square then. Of course, we were small. And it was around the square. People had such a good time. The merchants gave hot chocolate and everybody came. You'd put the kids in a wagon and walk up for the parade. Everybody was in it, but it suited us. They had, at Easter, there was Lenten services every week, and it was at the Methodist Church, and a different church would do the services each time, and we would go to the Episcopal Church for a meal afterwards. And we did it on a day, Thursday, when the square was closed in the afternoon. The square used to close on Thursday afternoons to be open all day on Saturday. So you'd take that time to go, and we had these church services all through the month for Easter. As I said, there was the Christmas Eve service. There were just all kinds of things that were just Collierville, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those things are still happening today. So you talked about your husband, Sidney. I mean, he was a pretty prominent member of this community, even though he was not born here.
Right.
So, I mean, I would love to hear a little more about Sidney. I mean, he did a lot in his time here.
He did a lot, but he would say there was a lot that needed to be done.
Yeah.
When we came, of course, I said the Hintons made sure we were very well connected, so we knew, a lot of folks. And he got very interested politically, and a lot of our friends were on the board, but they tended to be older, and as I said, there was no park system then, and Sidney saw right away that there was a need for something for children to be involved in.
Yeah.
So he began by getting involved in local clubs, and he was in the Optimist Club, and they did a fishing rodeo for children. They did a bicycle event. They sponsored football, like flag football leagues and sports teams, because nobody else really was doing that.
Yeah.
So he saw a need for the town to get involved at a level that small groups couldn't do. And so I think that's probably what really prompted him to run, because he thought they needed a younger voice who had children at home with a little bit different connection. So he was lucky enough to break into that circle, and he served 16 years, and it was a great pleasure to him. He had a servant's heart, so he was not a person who liked, it's funny because he was not a person who liked being in the public eye, but he liked serving his fellow man, and so he got a chance to do that.
Yeah, and from what I've read about him, he was very serious about that.
He really
He would
was.
get before anybody and
Yeah.
tell him what for,
He really was.
I really feel like I know him in some past lives. But, I mean, how did it feel being an alderman's wife? Did you feel like you had to, do the Princess Di way?
Oh, no. I remember the first time after he'd been elected, a police car pulled up in the driveway. That's not a normal happening.
Yeah.
And you get a little anxious when you have two kids and a police car pulls up. But they were delivering the packet of information for the alderman to have before the meeting. And in those days, that's how they did it.
Yeah.
We didn't have all this big town staff, so the policemen, bless them, would deliver things from City Hall. And you felt very connected, but everybody, it was a smaller place, and Sidney never saw it as he didn't see it as an important thing for him. He saw it as important for the town.
Absolutely.
And he had such a servant's heart that he wasn't that kind of a person. So it was just a chance to serve and do something for people.
So you were just Peggy and he was just
Yes,
Sidney by
absolutely.
the end of the day.
Absolutely. His door was always open to people that needed something, and I was already involved in a lot of things, and we just continued that same path. It didn't affect us, except for the time he was away.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Except for the time.
And you've been a pretty key figure in Collierville development too, so I think we should talk a little bit about Peggy and how she's been plugged in a lot of places. I mean,
I seem to do that. I don't know.
I was about to say library, I mean, the garden club, the museum. I mean, you're all over the place. I don't know how you do it because we all get the same 24 hours a day, but you apparently can do more with your 24 hours.
Not really. It's a privilege to get to serve in the spots that I've been plugged into. I think in the beginning the town was so small, every place needed your help.
Absolutely.
You know, it was just so small. And I was lucky enough to be here when things were beginning. You know, I'm a charter member of the garden club. When we came, the library was on the square. And I'd take the kids up there, and it was small. It was our library. It was a community meeting place. It's where we voted. Everything was right there in that little building on the square. So everything was just so much smaller. And so if you were taking part, you were working, or we wouldn't have had it. Because we didn't have professional staff. I was on the City Beautiful Commission, and we used to decorate around the square. The mayor would have those corn stalks put up for us, but we put all the pumpkins around. We decorated the Christmas tree. We did all those things because there wasn't a park commission to do it. So if you wanted to be part of things, if you wanted there to be things, you had to be part of the being.
Yeah, you were putting in work.
That's right. But that was the fun of it. That's how you got to know people and got plugged in. So once you're there, what are you going to step back from? You know, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, and like you said, if you want to see it done, you got to be involved.
At that time you did.
Yeah, there was only so much you could do. Like, there was only so many people here.
But now, and it's a wonderful thing that we have such a great staff. Now they do a lot of the things that volunteers used to do. But there's still plenty of places for people to volunteer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Plenty of places.
And speaking of like how you know we have so much fundamental staff in the town of Collierville who does all of that aesthetic work that makes Collierville Collierville.
It really is.
And it makes me ask you, like, how has the downtown square area changed? Because I mean, I've had a lot of people tell me it's become more commercial and less like home-based, like the grocery stores or drugstores and things like that. So
yes, when we came here, it was much more home-based. There was the movie theater had disappeared. I think a tornado took that out right before we came. But there was a grocery store, there was a dime store, there were drug stores, there were places that people actually went. One of the funniest anecdotes that I recall, and it may be an anecdote and not an actual happening, we had some wonderful ladies in Collierville, older ladies that we all really looked up to and admired. And they all did their shopping on the square. So they would drive up, and in that day, you just got out of your car and went in a store. You could leave it running. Everybody left their keys in the car, and nobody thought a thing about that. And so the tale goes that one of those ladies did her shopping and got in the car and went home, and she got there in the driveway and she thought, well, she had really enjoyed the radio on the way home, and then she thought, my car doesn't have a radio. So she had gotten in somebody else's car and driven home. Now that got told. I don't know if it really, happened. It might be anecdotal.
I mean,
but it's the kind of thing that could have happened.
Yeah, I could see it happening because I would
it's the
probably
kind of thing that could have happened.
I mean, how many times have you walked up to another car that looked just like yours in the parking lot?
And would have gotten in it if it had opened.
I mean, honestly, so.
But there were boarded up stores, Nicole, when we came here.
Okay.
So that's the scary thing, is that it was a wonderful square, and it had thriving stores that people actually went to. They weren't storefront or antique shops that people came out to see and that sort of thing. They were real shops, but there were also real empty spots.
I was about to say, people have told me this is the fullest the square's been for quite some time. So, I mean, I'm hoping as more, I know some of the old businesses like Patricia's right now is closing down.
Right.
But, I mean, they've been here for decades.
A long time.
So, and there's other businesses moving in. Like, we just lost the Scottish pub, but now we have a new Irish pub that's coming in. So, I always feel like there's always somebody waiting. Yeah, somebody waiting in the rafters to swoop in.
I hope so, because there's a limited amount of property there.
Yeah.
And the administration of the town has seen the wisdom of preserving it, which is a wonderful thing, historically.
There's been a lot of attempts to flatten that square. I mean, we've had the Civil War battles, we've had tornadoes and fires. I mean, at this point, I'm waiting for a giant to swoop in and take it out.
But they have done a good job of keeping it vital and vibrant and attractive. It looks wonderful all the time. At our Contemporary Club meeting this week, one of the ladies spoke about a wedding that they had, and they celebrated around the square, and how everybody raved over what a charming spot it was.
Absolutely.
And I think people who come here to visit are just blown away by its charm.
Yeah, I mean, when the kids went out after their field trip earlier this month, I mean, I took a really good shot of all of them just
Right.
out there sitting and eating their little lunches. And
It's
I'm
a
just
wonderful spot.
It really just kind of makes you feel like you're on Mulberry Street.
It really does. It
So,
does.
and we have a Mulberry Street,
That's
so
right.
it works out.
You're back in Mayberry, right?
Yeah, I was supposed to say, we are back there. But, I mean, just not even just the square, but how has the town changed? I mean, I know we've boomed.
Yeah.
Probably around the time is when you first got here that it was really starting to kick off.
It probably was. There were probably, I know there were less than 4,000 people when we finally got our house built and got to move out here. But, you know, the homecoming parade still came down our street when we moved in here. And as I said, the kids could ride up to the square. One of the funniest things that happened to us, the mayor called one day at lunch, and Sydney was home for lunch, and he said, "You're going to have to do something about those boys." And, you know, you wonder immediately,
Yeah,
what have they done now? And on his way home for lunch, he had noticed that his son and our son had ridden the horses uptown, and they had ridden up the steps of the Baptist church, which is no longer there.
Yeah.
But they were posed in the front of the Baptist church on their horses. And so he said, "You're going to have to do something about that." I don't know why we had to do something about that, but anyway, they got a good talking to.
Yeah, that's probably
And we
a
had to
good
go and be
idea.
sure the steps were clean.
Yeah, I was saying, probably don't want to leave like cow pies in the front door.
That's
You know,
right.
just
That's
maybe.
right. But so that church is gone.
Yeah.
And so lots of things are gone. The hardware store's gone. But,
Yeah.
but more things have, as you said, new things have come in their place, and it continues to be a vibrant, I think, heart of the town. As long as we have that connectedness to each other,
Yeah.
I think we stay a town and a community.
And do you think, I mean, because right now we're borderline being a town anymore. We're more like a small city at
Yes,
this
we are.
point.
Yes, we are.
And so, like, do you still feel like that sense of community is still prevalent here? Do you feel like?
I hope it is. It is for me.
Yeah.
Because as you said, I'm privileged to be plugged into a lot of different organizations.
Absolutely.
And that makes me feel a sense of community. And so I would encourage people that come here now, do that. Get involved. Everything I belong to needs more volunteers.
Absolutely.
And so as long as you connect yourself, I think it feels like a community. When it doesn't, it's when you work somewhere else and you live here and you don't take part in what that community is doing.
Absolutely.
Then,
I
it's,
mean,
then it's a bedroom community.
yeah, then you're just sleeping here. You know?
Then
I
it's not a
mean,
town.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the difference, because when we came here, my husband quit his job in Memphis and decided to open up an insurance agency on the square. And again, I panicked. You know, I think I cried when they came and took the company car. And, but that made us plugged in a different way than we would have been had he continued to work in Memphis and drive back and forth.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, and
that's been the difference for us.
Absolutely. Because I know a lot of people, I mean, you know, people who've been born and raised here, generations family, they always feel like every extra person is just making this town less than what it was.
Right.
But I've had new people who've been here maybe a decade or so who've actually been able to say, like, this is how we grow. I mean, we
Right.
just got to be able to keep that same connection.
That's always the balance, isn't it? To keep it vital, because Potts Camp, where my husband wanted to move, has gone the other direction. There's barely anything there now. And so if you don't add people, that's what happens. So, but then there's a point beyond, I'm not sure if you can continue to involve that many people. Now the events that are around the square draw thousands of people. It's hard to feel like a community in that kind of a crowd.
And especially since a lot of those people come from these little
Some
areas,
other places, yes.
Fisherville, you know, Fayette
Yes.
County, and things like that. And you're just like,
And I don't blame them. It's a lovely thing to attend. I'm glad they come. But there's a fine line between it's overwhelming and it's fun. You know?
well, because you don't want to ever make the locals feel like they don't have a place there. Like
Exactly.
we're catering to people who are coming out of town, because you know that's how economies flourish. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? But at the same time, I mean, it's only one group of people's taxes are paying for all this. You know.
But if you plug in, all those things need volunteers. If you plug in, then you're connected. You're not overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly.
By the other.
Yeah,
And you don't feel threatened
the
by the other.
outsiders, you know. And now, a question I ask a lot of people is if they feel like old Collierville. I'm sure you've heard that term before. Where, I mean, do you feel old Collierville? You feel like you've been here long enough?
I think unless you were born and raised here, you are not old.
Okay. Well, but
I feel grafted in.
yeah, what to say?
I feel a part for sure. I feel a part for sure because I've lived here longer than anywhere I've ever lived. And I feel more connected to this place than anywhere I've ever lived. So I still feel very, very much grafted in. But I think it's those people that were born here and know all these stories and knew all these wonderful people that made this what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not one of those.
I mean, but you played your part into a lot of the things that, for example, the museum has done, the library has done, the Contemporary Club has done.
Well,
and we all know the Contemporary Club's like one of the oldest groups in
is.
Collierville next to the Rotary Club.
It
So,
is.
I mean, that's no small feat, and that's pretty good for someone who wasn't born here. So, like, but I definitely always ask, like, you know, people always tell me about old Collierville and how it felt and how different it was.
Yes.
But it's a time that was only like a couple thousand people, and not even a couple, like probably two.
Right.
Maybe 3 at the most.
Right.
And as we push towards like 53,000 people, it's just like,
It's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, how do we preserve that old Collierville feel without stagnating the growth of the town?
There's
you
a
know?
fine line there.
And it's just, but you know, the thing is too, I mean, we've all heard the stories. Old Collierville was a funny, wild time back in the day.
Yes.
And so maybe in your time here, have you ever had an experience where you're like, that is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life? I mean, we've all seen some crazy things out here, but.
Well, the boys on the church steps were pretty funny. And Sydney was lucky enough to be friends with a lot of those old Collierville folks, and they were kind enough to embrace us. That's what made the difference for us, is we felt embraced by old Collierville as opposed to held at a distance.
Absolutely.
We weren't considered old Collierville, but we were embraced by them, and that made all the difference. And so we got to know some of those wonderful old characters, you know, that were here.
I mean, the Hittons were pretty.
Oh, they were.
I mean,
they
the Hittons
were.
and the Huntons, actually, they were both pretty big families out here. So
They really were, and we were lucky enough to be dropped down right between them and have that advantage, and to know Mr. Herbert and to know Miss Frances and all their connections. Miss Frances told me that when she moved here as a bride, that their telephone exchange was 24. That was her number.
just 24.
She was 24. And so, you know, it was a very different time, a very different time. But we felt lucky to be embraced in it. And there were great things that happened. Miss Lois Hewlett used to ride her horse all over the neighborhood, and it was a horse that was very gentle, and the kids could all run up and pat her. And things like that happened when it was small enough that you could ride down Peterson Lake on a horse.
Yeah.
We could take, my husband was a horse person, and we could take the carriage out and drive around our neighborhood. Well, as I said, I can hardly get out my drive now in a car.
Yeah.
And so
Especially when the school buses are there.
especially when the school buses are coming. So it's very different now. So I'm glad that we have those memories. My children loved growing up here. It was small enough then that they loved growing up here. But they come back and say, how can this be Collierville? Because they're not plugged in anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and they've been gone for enough
long
of time
time,
where
yeah.
it's like you come back and it's almost shocking. Like,
It is shocking. Our son will say, when did that happen? When did that happen? When did they change that? And nobody can believe all the houses.
oh yeah. I mean, that's another question a lot of people have had, like, you know, the apartment complexes. And, you know, and some of our other interviewees have brought up, like, you know, it's not really affordable for the average
Yes.
person anymore.
Yes, that was one of the hard things when Sydney was on the board, was that we'd like for our children to be able to live here if there was work for them to do and a place they could afford to live. And that was rapidly becoming not the case, even in Sydney's years on the board.
Yeah, but wow.
And there's a fine line between overdoing. When are there too many apartment complexes? And I think people are beginning to feel that.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this last election, I think you saw that expressed as problematic.
Pretty big sticky point. Well, and that's the thing, is none of these apartments are even affordable to
They're-
stay in.
they're really
Like,
not.
I mean, I to be completely transparent, where I stay in Cordova, rent's $1,200 a month for a gated complex. I come out here and,
And try to find that here.
and I will be spending easily a couple $1,000s
right.
to get that same experience.
That's right.
So when people are like, oh, where in Collierville do you live? And I'm like, I'm afraid that I can't afford to be out here,
Right.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
But it's just, and it's not a negative thing. I understand why you want to make sure that they're looking for a certain level of income, for sure. But then you lose out on those people who can't simply afford it. Especially in this day and age, it is not an uncommon thing, you know, to not be able to afford stuff.
But that was the beauty of old Collierville.
Yeah.
Is that everybody was part of this.
Exactly.
We had a farming community, we had an industrial community, we had there were all levels, there were all social levels in Old Collierville.
Absolutely.
And they were all welcomed. And then it began to get more prosperous and successful, and it's become harder and harder for the average person to come here.
And I've heard the complaint too that there's like, I mean, I feel like back in the day there was more to do as a young person and a child or you know, a young adult or teenager.
Maybe so.
Yeah, than there was today. I mean, there's really not much for them.
But they're more organized. There are more organized things now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are more places to do things than there ever were. But there are so many who want to do them, I don't know how likely you are to be able to get involved. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not having children that age anymore, I'm not as linked into that as I used to be.
Absolutely. Well, and let's move into, like, have you ever experienced a period in Collierville that you felt was difficult or hard, like maybe during campaigning seasons?
Oh, mercy, that was always hard.
I know, I was saying, I mean, I'm sure he put you to work many a night
I
folding
have
pamphlets.
waved many signs. I have waved many, so have our children, many signs. It's always hard when you're in the public eye and you're making decisions. Sidney was the most surprised, I think. He thought he was elected and he would serve and he would just automatically know the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Because when he wasn't on the board, he felt like he always knew.
Yeah.
He had an opinion.
Absolutely.
But when he got on the board and you saw it from behind the scenes, you couldn't look at what you thought was the right thing to do. You had to look at a bigger picture of what was right for the town. Mm-hmm. And that's a harder decision.
Absolutely.
And so you're not going to make friends everywhere. Mm-mm. There are always going to be people who disagree, and that's hard to hear. He was much better at it than I. He would always say, "You can't take this personally." Well, I could only take it personally.
I mean,
So
I understand.
Campaign seasons were always hard. There was always someone who ran against you. That was always hard. I can probably tell you now where those signs were in the yards. It's hard not to take that personally.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. But I mean, did you feel like it negatively impacted your family's time here? Or did you just feel like it was just the way of the game when you're out there?
No, because it didn't, Sidney.
Yeah.
He had such a good spirit about it that he didn't take it personally. And he didn't hang on after his time was over. He didn't continue trying to impact or tell people. He just stepped back and said, I've served my time and they're ready for somebody else. And so he took it well, so we did too.
Well, it seems like you both have such a heart for Collierville despite not being here.
That was, that developed right away when we came. Yeah. But I think it's because of where we were and the time.
Absolutely.
It was possible for us. Mm. I don't know how possible that is now.
Absolutely.
Because every place needed you. Every organization needed help. And I don't know if that's the case now. It probably is. Most every organization I know still needs help.
Yeah, I mean, there's never not a need to have somebody like tap in and figure something. We'll find you a job. That's
like
for sure.
With the readers. All of a sudden we have 6.
Yeah,
and we had 2.
Yeah, well, so we've been able to actually, and I don't even know where that came from. It's not like we did any more PR or anything like that. It's just people get in the mood and they want to help.
That's right.
And we got to make sure that we have something for them to do when they want
That's exactly
to.
Right. That's exactly right.
I mean, and also with you working on any boards, have you ever had like a moment where you're just like, wow, this is really difficult or hard? I mean, but have they been mostly like easy to?
It's been mostly a positive experience because I've had such good people to work with.
Great, that's good to hear.
It's been a good experience. I've had a few, I guess you'd call them prickly. I've had a few prickly situations, but they resolved themselves.
I must say, because you were out there advocating for, which is so funny because we just got approved for an expansion on the library, but you were the one who was advocating for even the building of that.
Oh, yeah, the big one.
Yeah,
I wanted the big one.
Yeah.
I
mean, that had to have been, I know what it's like trying to get money out of a municipal government. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about that. Was that a lot of nights of planning and campaigning for that as well?
Just a lot of hopefulness and emails and telephone calls, and every time you got a chance to see personally a public official to say, I do hope you're giving this careful consideration. Mm-hmm. Because the library is dear to my heart. I'm on the library board, but we've always been active and taken part and used the library resources and value it highly. And I've never really understood why people don't value it, but it tends to be the lower rung of the thing that gets attention. Because when we built that 20 years ago, it was built with the idea it would have to expand. Mm-hmm. It was barely built to be large enough then.
Absolutely.
of course, that was Shelby County. We didn't own it then. So Shelby County built it, but it was at the whole back wall was meant to be expanded. And so we always knew it had to be expanded. And then here we are 20 years later and they've not done anything. So it's a little bit frustrating to think that every time we think it's our turn, it's not.
I know these humanities, I would
Yes.
say, are always a little bit on the
extras.
Yeah, they're just like we're incentives, not really like necessities. Which, in my humble opinion, if I was a kid in Collierville who family can't afford a laptop or research materials for me, I mean, I would
Think
go
what a
to
boon the library would be.
Yeah.
I heard from a friend today that it never occurred to me, but she said, I'm in a reading room at the library because I had to have a place that there were no distractions.
Absolutely.
That didn't even occur to me. I would never have thought about going there for that.
Well, if you're in college, I mean, if it like, well, there was a lot of kids here for fall break who were off college, came back over here. I mean, they need places to go
place to
that's
study.
away from the
Exactly.
family.
Family
and-
distractions.
I mean, I've tried to study with my whole family roaring and ripping around me,
Right,
and
right.
it's almost impossible. So.
And if you're at home, I know this is a problem for people who work at home. It would be for me. You can't help but see the things that need to be done, and it distracts you from the job you need to finish first.
Absolutely, yeah. You just like also like, oh, I'll go take a little nap, go get me a little snack, and then next you know it's 30 minutes later, and you're like, oh.
So it meets needs for every age,
Absolutely.
every stage, and so I'm delighted that they've chosen to move forward, even though it isn't what I had hoped. I'm still hoping that we'll be able to raise enough money to add some of those things that got
Absolutely.
chopped off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing is, it's I mean, you've seen our struggle over here at the
Yes.
museum trying to justify that, you know, and then maybe, yeah, 20 years ago, the museum world was not a place you could go get a degree in. But nowadays, you can get a degree in museum studies and go out and work at museums at every level. And it's not just like, you know, director, front
Right.
desk person, collections person. It's
Right.
now a bunch of like fundamentalist jobs that have to be
Right.
done. And it's just so hard to convey that to someone who hasn't dedicated their life to
That
the
kind of thing.
fields. And it's an uphill battle. I mean, we're grateful for everything that we get, but it's always, you know, one more thing, you know, just one more thing.
But it brings such value. I'm not sure it's measurable.
Yeah.
You know,
Metrics are hard to get
Yes,
here. Like, how do
yes.
people always say, like, I wish more people would come and use these facilities. And I'm like, listen, if one or two people come in here and they learn something or they had a good time, that's our goal. And I know it's not as bombastic like the Met Gala or something like that, but it's like,
we're working toward that.
yeah, we're getting our over there. I mean, because we have expanded. I'm sure. I mean, you can speak on this. Well, since we've opened in 2012,
Oh,
do you
yes.
feel like we've
Oh, yes. This
expanded?
is incredible. This is incredible, the opportunities and the things that you provide, the lunch and learns, the story times. It's incredible, the things you provide. So, yes, it's greatly expanded beyond what I had ever thought it could be.
Yeah,
but I'm
absolutely.
so grateful to Mr. Morton and to the town because Sydney happened to be on the board at the time that all happened. And thankfully, there were enough people who saw the value that they did step into this. And it's just been a wonderful resource for the town.
absolutely.
It truly is.
Well, I mean, it's not like you remember this past year. I've been all over here in Carnation trying to just advocate for the museum,
Yes.
and people are so surprised when I say I come from a museum that has 3 staff members in a town of less than 55,000 people. I mean,
Right.
they're just blown away that
that we have it.
Yeah, that we've even
That we have
put
it.
the effort into giving
Yes.
it an actual start. Because I mean, there's a lot of small town museums out there that don't have the funding or the
Yes.
resources. So it's just, and I'm so thankful for people who in the past were like, this needs to be something we do.
Right.
Especially like Mr. Morton, who was like, okay,
Yes.
I have this building, don't
Right.
know what I want to do with it, but so what would you do with it if I gave it to you? And he's still a supporter today.
Oh, absolutely, he
So
is.
it's just, it's nice to know in this town people see a need and they feel a need kind of thing.
Exactly. And this houses Collierville history.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a place for that, it's lost.
Yes.
It's completely lost.
Goes in a dumpster somewhere.
Some dumpster gets it because I'm seeing that with my friends and with my own family, that as the older group passes from the scene, many times the younger group does not value the things that they have valued, and things that are irreplaceable are done away with. I've done it myself.
I mean, yeah, we've all been there.
I've done it myself. I've thrown away pictures that had great value to a family member, but there was no one left of her family. And so what do you do with that? You can't keep everything.
Absolutely.
And it's a really hard thing. So because of the museum, you make it possible for Collierville's history to be preserved. I love that.
Yeah, and we have a complex history. I mean,
Yes,
for a small
we do
town,
for a small town.
we have a complex history.
Welcome to the South.
Yeah, I'm about to say. I mean, it was especially with like the 250th of America's birthday coming up. I mean, it's allowing us to have a conversation about how these little towns have managed to survive all that we survived. Because there's been a few times we've been knocked down and gotten back up. So it's nice to have a place for physical culture to have a home and for it to be taken care of.
Absolutely, to be preserved.
Yeah. And
because in so many towns it's not.
I mean, there's a lot
and
of
so many towns don't survive. I come from the Delta of Mississippi, and so many of our little towns have not survived.
And I fear it's just this connection to nostalgia. We don't want much to change, but you know, when you want to grow, you got to change.
You have to change.
And it's unfortunate that some towns just couldn't get on that bus. And I know it's hard. It is difficult to have that conversation because no one wants to go back to their hometown and not recognize it.
Well, that's it. When my children come and they say, "What has happened?" That makes me feel a bit of sadness that the town that they grew up in is no more. We don't know every person who lives in every house and every person who owns every store. And no, you can't ride your horses anymore down Poplar, you know. But he has those memories, you know, both of them have those memories. And we can preserve that.
Absolutely.
We can preserve that.
So, you know, being in the public eyes, which you have, is there any events, celebrations that you've seen over the years that you've gone like, this is so Collierville.
This is so Collierville.
Like, this is so us. We're weird like this. I mean, we just did the Centennial Celebration exhibition. There were some quirky events happening during the year of 1970. So.
We're sort of known for that.
Yeah, I mean, and
we're
these
sort
small
of known
towns
for
can get away with it. Like Memphis couldn't do half the stuff that we do.
Exactly.
So, is there something that really pops out at you?
We've gotten by with a lot of things that you probably couldn't do, or probably couldn't do other places. But I think as we've grown, we've held on to the essentials of that because most of the things that meant so much to me in the beginning, like the Christmas parade, they moved it from the square because of size constraints. It just broke my heart. That was the perfect backdrop for a Christmas parade.
Absolutely.
It's perfect. But as the town grew, there was nowhere for people to park. They couldn't begin to have the parade line up with all the numbers of people that wanted to participate.
Absolutely.
So you either had to let it get so small that it lost interest, or then let it, and now it's so large, it's really almost out of bounds.
Yeah.
You know, having ridden in it fairly recently, you wait a long time for it to be your turn to come down the street. You know, there are a lot of vehicles and floats and folks that are, but that's a wonderful thing, and people turn out from everywhere. So while we've lost the charm of being around the square with all that just charm that comes with it, and the hot chocolate that your friends were sharing, we've lost that, but we've gained all this opportunity for so many people to be involved. So you have to, there's a balance. So I think the seed of the wonderful things that are happening now are in our history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why it's important for you to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and also I think about when 2 or 3 days before the Christmas parade, I drive down the road and I see all those
the cars and the chairs are set out.
I'm like, the first time I saw that, I was like, what is going on? Because I've never seen a small town kind of prepare for a parade like that. I mean, I used to, back in high school, I was in the marching band, and we used to, you know, march at all the parades, and I've never seen them like designate spots like that.
And nobody bothers them.
No.
Here's the miracle. Nobody bothers
you don't come
them.
back and your chair's been moved or missing.
No.
It's just, it's there where you left it.
That's right, you can count on it. And our church tried in the beginning, when they first moved it down Byhalia, we tried giving out hot chocolate on the night of the parade. We were very soon overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
Very soon overwhelmed.
There's something about hot chocolate. We did it here one time where the line was out the door. I was like, for basic, mediocre hot chocolate. So like we're back
this
here.
Is a mix.
I must say something. We're back here melting the chocolate ourselves.
Oh, no, we didn't do that. We used a mix.
I was about to say, but they were here for it. And that's the thing is that, I mean, yes, I'm happy we're 1 or 2 people, but I do love how this community does tend to show out for some of our, I mean,
yes,
you were here
for the big events. Yeah.
You were here when our exhibition opened for the Centennial Celebration, and that was great. All the mayor and aldermen were here, and a lot of old Collierville, new
supported.
We had some youngins that had just moved here, and
Right.
I was so pleased with how that turned out. So,
but I'm glad that you have preserved that gem and germ of idea that were those things early on.
Yes.
Because now these people see the big thing, but they can see where it began.
Absolutely.
I think that's really important, the history of that moment. I think it's important to know that this parade used to go around the square. It used to be this charming little parade. Now it's this huge event that draws people from all over. So instead of being angry that it's not what it used to be,
It's not what it used to be, yeah.
celebrate what it is.
I mean, I
Right?
completely agree. I mean, I think we have to know where we've been to know where we're going. In
I
a sense.
agree.
So I mean, change is change, it happens. But at the end of the day, it's nice to know that these things have roots.
Yes,
deep in
that's
this
what I was trying to say,
community.
that you're the rootedness.
Yeah. So now
You can
you
preserve
can
that.
appreciate that we used to go around the square
Yes,
and down
yes.
Rowlett and stuff like that. And now we're taking up half the darn town when we get the parade going.
And at first I got mad when they changed it, because we of course campaigned to keep it up here on the square. And so when they changed it, I dug in my heels and said, well, I'm not going. You know, well, they still had it. So
We were like, well, shucks. If they're
I
gonna
gave
have
that up,
it-
so-
yeah, I mean, they're going to do it anyway. I might
roll
as well
with
go.
it, you know, roll with it. Just celebrate what they're doing now. Otherwise you miss out.
Absolutely. You don't want to say you weren't there for crazy reasons.
Exactly. So I'm going.
Well,
And the 4th of July,
Oh,
like the
yeah, I mean,
fireworks.
that's
I mean, look what
whole-
that's become. Look what that's become.
Absolutely. I mean, we just had our biggest train day ever.
And the train day.
Train Heritage Day this August.
And Dairy Days.
Dairy Days. Oh my God. I've been told some people want to bring back the cheese carnival. I'm like, I don't know if we can handle all that.
Sure you can.
Because we already do Fair on the Square, and that's
know.
such a big event. I'm like,
know.
can I do a whole day based on cheese?
Well, we used to.
I mean, people love cheese. I mean, people always ask me, like, we got to bring that back. I mean, people who just moved here, like, wait a minute, what? We got to bring that back.
And Miss Wilson is still here. She was the queen. you
Yes,
know, you
we've
could-
had several cheese queens say, like, you know, I remember I was in the court. That's me right there.
Right, that's a wonderful thing.
I mean, I think it would be fun to kind of bring back the giant wheel of cheese float. See, that would be beautiful to me.
See, that was gone by the time I came, but I would have loved to have seen it,
But see, I think they wrapped it up around the time you had just moved
Maybe they
here.
did.
I think,
because I don't remember it.
yeah, I think that was freshly just done because I know World War II is kind of the reason why sentiments had changed about
Oh.
doing it. People just, you know, there's a war going on, rations were happening, and there was stress about people going off to war. So nobody really wanted to throw a big party.
I see.
So and that's what I've been told. I don't
Okay.
know if there's an official town of Collierville reason. I mean, it could have been this is there's too many people here because like the first one brought like what 25,000 people.
Oh, my word.
I mean, that's a lot of people
It
for
sure
small
is.
town Collierville
It
back in
sure
the
is.
day.
I don't know how
So,
they handle that.
I mean, they might have been like, it's just too big of an event to bring out, but who knows? I mean, we do so much already. I mean, I'm just like, what? One more thing, sure, why not? For us to coordinate. But and let me ask you this: what is a story you kind of wished people knew about Collierville? Like, what do you think encapsulates Collierville for you? Like, maybe something you just never had a good platform to talk about.
Maybe the kindness of old Collierville when we came.
Do you feel like, and you've said this before, that they kind of just,
They embraced us, and I think that would be a good lesson for all of us now who are complaining about how big it's gotten and it's too big and we shouldn't have this and we shouldn't have that. I was embraced when I came, and it changed Collierville for them in the same way that this is changing Collierville for us now.
absolutely.
And we weren't treated as other. You know,
I
we were
mean-
welcomed. And I've seen so many little towns die, and look what's happened to us. So if you have to choose,
Which one would you
I
pick?
choose this.
And you lived next to Mrs. Hinton, didn't
Yes,
you? Did you
right.
get to go to one of her infamous dinner parties?
Absolutely.
We had Tyler
Why
Guthrie
do you think we were here?
Yeah, I must say, we had Tyler Guthrie come in, and she is the whole reason why he met Jack Everett
Right.
and did that whole
And
series.
did that whole series.
With the Collierville Savings and Loan. And I was just like, that is so funny because one woman said, "You're coming to dinner,"
Right.
and he told me that she had full plans of setting him up with somebody while he was there.
I'm sure she did.
And he was
I'm sure
like,
she
she
did.
just plugged him into the right place, and now he's pretty infamous. I mean, most pictures that we have of Collierville are from his painting series, so it's just like, it's so funny how like if you meet the right person. But I also love that people like her were like almost like the welcoming committee.
They were.
Yeah.
They were. I'll have to tell you a funny story about Miss Catherine. Of course, she was our neighbor just next door, and she welcomed us with open arms and made us feel a part of everything. But she was the more formal person, And she did have those lovely dinner parties. And she had us out to supper before we ever built our house. After we had bought the lot and she knew we were coming, she invited us out. We didn't know what to expect. So we've had a lot of meals around her dining room table that were just fun. And so she asked us that night, where do you folks go to church? And so we said, well, we go to the Baptist church. And she smiled, and then she said, well, in Collierville, the really nice people go to the Methodist church. So I guess that was her pitch.
Yes,
when you move, you'll probably want to move that membership.
Give 'em a
So,
say.
so she let us get by with staying in the Baptist church. But anyway, she
She said, I will
that's what she
allow
said.
it.
They're really nice people, and she knew who the nice people were. But if she introduced you, you were introduced because she knew everybody. And my son would go up on Sunday nights and they'd watch things on Channel 10. She was by herself then, and so she would have him up and they'd watch Channel 10. And she had a big barn behind her house, and so she let us keep our horses back there. So the Coxes had their horses there, we had our horses there. And she loved seeing the boys come up and fool with the horses right out there in her side yard. And they'd always stop and talk to her. And they got in trouble because her granddaughter wanted to do something with them, and for some reason they wouldn't let her. It was a girl thing, I'm sure, and they wanted the boys to go do whatever. And so she tattled on them, and they got in trouble with Miss Catherine. Zilka told that they had Playboy magazines in the barn. Oh. And so that was, of course, really a no-no.
I mean, that's a sin right
That was
there.
a real biggie. It was a real biggie. And Keith still laughs about it. She called him in and really gave it to him. But she called us and said, don't worry, I've taken care of it.
So don't even sweat it.
She was like the queen. She was like the queen bee. If you knew Catherine, if you were in her good graces, you were in. I don't think there's anybody here like that anymore.
No, there really isn't someone who just kind of like.
Well, I don't know them. Let's say
I mean,
that.
I haven't really heard. I mean, you would probably be the closest thing.
No,
I'm
not even close.
Like, if you wanted to listen, if you want something to do, you just call up Peggy and she'll find you something to do.
Well, she knew all the right ways to do everything. She was very Old South, and she knew all the right ways to do everything. She was the kind of person. She had these gorgeous daffodils in her backyard. So she would call me and she would say, Peggy, the daffodils are blooming. And I would say, that's wonderful. She'd say, come up and pick some for yourself, and you can bring me some to the side door at 3 o'clock. And you did.
I mean, yeah, I can't argue with that.
You went right up. You watched for it to be 3 o'clock, and you were sure you went to the door she told you to come to. I mean, that's just, in that day, she was just that lady.
Yeah.
She was just
absolutely.
that lady.
I mean, I've heard about her, and I'm not even from here. So, like, and she was long gone before I ever got here. So,
but she was a wonderful character. She was a
I've
wonderful
character. I've only heard good things for the whole family, really. And they were prominent business owners on the square for a while, if I remember correctly.
They were.
The Hittons and the Huns.
Her husband was a cotton farmer and dairy farmer, but he was also in the legislature. So he was the more businesslike. Herbert was the more farmer-like. He had a dairy farm. His family had the funeral home. They had lots of businesses around the square.
Oh, wow.
But Herbert was the more down-to-earth one, and Frances was his wife, and she was absolutely lovely. But she had a kinder spirit. You know, she wasn't quite as, she wouldn't have told me that all the nice people went to the Methodist church.
She would have kept that thought to herself.
She would have kept that thought to herself.
Well, as we move, like, we're talking about a lot about the future and the past, but like, what is something that you wish future generations would remember about Collierville? What's something you hope always sticks to Collierville?
Always sticks to Collierville.
Yeah, I mean, when people think of Collierville, what do you want them to always remember about Collierville?
I think part of a small town feel is kindness. There is a kindness, I think, in small towns because people know each other, and so they care about each other. Mm-hmm. When we came here, people really cared about their neighbors. You knew your neighbors. You really cared about them. I think that's the spirit I'd like to see us carry forth, and that's harder and harder as you're larger. Mm-hmm. There's a limited number of people you can be really connected to.
Absolutely.
And so when a town is this size, but surely you could do that in a subdivision or in a club or in a church or in a small group setting. So I'd love to see people stay involved in small group settings in a connected way so that we didn't lose that sense of community, because Collierville has always had that.
Absolutely. Like I said, I mean, everybody who works at this museum are not from here.
Right.
And I mean, I always say people like, oh, the people of Collierville would march the streets for, the Morton Museum. Like, we never, because, it's a scary time for museums with all the budget cuts and stuff like that. And people have been asking.
I hadn't thought of that.
Been asking, like, how is the museum doing? I'm like, I don't think we're really in any kind of danger here, thankfully. I mean, it's a luxury to have.
It is a luxury.
But I feel like a lot of people care about not just this institution, but us as individuals. I mean, they remember our names, what we've been doing,
Excellent.
who our family is, and it's like,
Excellent.
it's like our neighbor, for example. I mean, he is very patient with us. We do some
Yes.
crazy things over here, and he is always.
But isn't he kind?
He is always so kind to us. He tells Wesley, because she lives in Arkansas, like, if you ever get snowed in and you need a place to stay, we've got an extra
Now,
bed
how
over there.
kind is that?
And
That's what I'd like people to know
Yes,
and
and
remember about Collierville.
that's that kindness to strangers,
Yes.
to the others,
To the other.
that I feel like.
If that can be the heart of your community, it doesn't matter how big you are.
Absolutely.
If that can be the heart.
And all those little small groups come together every once in a while,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
the Contemporary Club, the Garden Club come together
Right.
frequently here at the Morton Museum.
Yes, we do.
So it's, and a lot of those members are on the same boards
are,
together.
we are. We
And
have
those
some of the
members
stuff.
are on the Friends board.
There's crossover.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
so it's
crossover.
just like they come together in a very unique way, so.
But this gentleman has come over several times when I've been working out in the garden to offer, whatever. And he's really kind. And he could have been really upset that you're here.
Yeah, I mean, because we've had
Ungracious. He could
We've
have been.
had wedding people come over to his garden
sure
and try
you
to
have.
take pictures.
I'm sure you have.
People have used his parking spaces, and I'm just like, and he's just like, it is what it is. I mean,
Right. So good for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's very gracious about it. And I mean, in turn, we let the beauty parlor that's across the street use our parking lot.
Use your parking lot.
And it's just a matter of
That's the spirit
Yeah.
of connectedness that I mean, that we always had, and I hope we can still keep.
Absolutely.
I don't know. When we dedicated the park, I guess it's McGinnis. It's where Schilling developed. I remember standing because I was in the younger group then, and the older group, the gray hairs, were sitting down, and I was standing looking at them, thinking, these are the people that made the town what it is. And I think maybe one of the differences is that those of us who came then valued that. You know, we knew them, we knew stories, funny stories about them. We had seen them in various places of responsibility. We looked up to them, but we knew the value they had contributed, you know. And I hope we don't lose that. You know, I wonder about the people that come now. How much do they know? And that's another reason that this is so important, this place, is because you have collected those stories. And as long as they're here, they live on.
Absolutely. I always go, so we all know I started off my career in Egyptology.
Yeah.
And I've always loved the mentality of the ancient Egyptians because they believe that you continue to live on until the last time your name is spoken
I love
or
that.
your image has been destroyed. So they immortalize everything from the bodies of the deceased to the statues
Right.
and their names.
Utensils, everything.
Yeah, they immortalize that because they believe that once you are forever forgotten, that you are truly forgotten.
It's like you didn't exist.
Yeah, like you didn't exist. And a lot of cultures still believe that. Like, the Hispanic cultures put all things up on the veranda
Yes.
for their lost ones, and they
Right.
have the Day of the Dead. A lot of cultures believe that you are not truly dead until someone speaks your name for the last time.
Right.
And I do believe that when you have an institution, a depository like this,
Yes.
a lot of people who've been long gone continue to live on in some
be
form
remembered.
or fashion. Yes.
Can be remembered. I love that. And the older I get, the more valuable that seems to me.
I get told that a lot. Like, listen, if you had asked me when I was 20-something years old, I wouldn't have cared nothing about this. But people tell me as I get older, I start thinking about my
Yes.
legacy.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
You do. You think about, because there are people you've lost, but I think that's how they live on, as not only as their name is called, but maybe you use I use a recipe that was Miss Francis. I have flowers bloom that I got from Catherine. There are just ways that they will continue to live on for me.
Absolutely.
As long as I'm here, and I try to remember sayings that were my grandmother's. She would say, she had a gracious plenty. There are just phrases that she used that I try to use because I also feel like that's how she lives on. So, and the older you get, the more valuable that is to you.
Absolutely.
But one person can't do it. but a museum can certainly help.
Yeah, because I always say, like, I want people to have a relationship with this building because, you know, we will all move on in our own ways in the future. But I want people to still think of this museum as a place to deposit their history and that it will be taken care of here.
Right.
And that's my biggest goal, and that's what I would love to see. This, because, you know, size doesn't determine impact for me. Just because we're a small museum doesn't mean that we have small impact.
Good for you.
And so, well, you got to think big if you want to be big, you know what I mean? So I definitely don't want to. I want to honor people like, you know, Mr. Morton and his family who are the only reason we're here, really.
Yes,
in a sense.
really.
Because I think it would have taken a lot longer if the town had.
I don't know that they would ever have seen, watching what they've done with the library. It might be a goal they would have set, but to be able to reach it with all the other needs that are pressing, the fire department, the police department, the streets, there's so many other pressing needs that push themselves to the front, that things like the library and the museum are going to always be a little bit at the back of the parade, you know. And so that's just the way of things.
That's how it is in a lot of places. It's not just, I mean, in places a lot bigger than Collierville.
Absolutely, that's just life. And so that he provided it and that the town acted on it, because if the town hadn't stepped in and been willing to take it on, it would have just been a big empty building preserved. And so I'm really grateful.
But so as we wrap up this conversation, I just want to ask you, are there any questions we didn't ask that you feel like need to be said, or do you feel like you've encompassed a lot of your time here?
You tell me.
Well, I mean, we've gone over a lot, to be fair, so it's just kind of hard to focus. I mean, maybe, we might come back for part 2, I don't know.
Well, I wish, I asked my children, you know, I said, if I come and share some stories, what would you like me to share? And I didn't hear back from my daughter, so I don't know what her idea would have been, except riding horses with Jeannie Smith, because that was a big part of her growing up. But Keith said, be sure and tell them about I rode on the steps of the church. And that Miss Catherine called us with the Playboy magazines. So I covered his 2 things.
See, that was on those requirements.
That's what he remembered. But he remembers, you know, going up and being with her. And she was the person that you ask about correctness. You know, she knew the exact correct thing and the way to do it.
Do we use?
Everything about, you know. And so she was the person we looked to for those kinds of things. And it was Frances we ran to if we needed something.
Absolutely.
It was good to have one on each side.
And you guys kind of inherited that with Sydney and you. So it's kind of like she kind of set your course almost in a way.
Truly, that's right. It's just God's hand that set us right down there in between those 2 terrific Collierville characters. Because if we had our life, we say all the time how different our life would have been had one of those other houses worked. Would I ever even have met them?
Absolutely.
You know, would have known them. It would have been a very different course that we would have charted. And so I'm so grateful for that little space and the time we've lived there. And I feel very comfortable there and comforted there and rooted there. And that's what I would hope for everybody that comes here.
Absolutely.
Is a rootedness in a community, not just a place to sleep.
Yeah, a place to just go home at night, you know? Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all I have. So, Peggy, thank you again. I mean, this has been a pleasure. So
it's always a pleasure to chat with you.
I know, really. I knew it would be easy for us to go back and forth for a bit.
How could this be hard?
I'm about to say. Well, thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
And I appreciate anybody for watching. And this has been Nicole Gregory at the Morton Museum for the In the Words Collierville Oral History Project.